Hello and welcome. Today, I'm going to whisper to you about one of the most iconic figures of the ancient world, Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Known for her intelligence, beauty, and political acumen, Cleopatra's life was filled with power, love, and intrigue. She ruled a kingdom at a time when the fate of Egypt hung in the balance, and her story intertwines with some of the greatest figures of the Roman world, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Our journey will take us through the golden palaces of Alexandria, the bustling streets of Rome, and the dramatic battlefields of the Mediterranean. We'll uncover how Cleopatra used her charisma and diplomatic skills to navigate the turbulent politics of her time, forming alliances that shaped the course of history. From her early years as a young queen to her tragic end, Cleopatra's story is one of resilience, ambition, and legacy. So, find a comfortable spot, close your eyes, and let your mind drift back to the ancient sands of Egypt as we explore the life and legend of Cleopatra, the last queen of the Nile. Cleopatra's early life and royal lineage. Cleopatra VII, one of the most famous figures of ancient Egypt, was born in 69 BCE in the city of Alexandria, the capital of Ptolemaic Egypt. She was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek ruling family that had controlled Egypt since the era of Alexander the Great. This dynasty, known for its intrigue and internal power struggles, often married within the family to maintain their Greek heritage and royal bloodline. Cleopatra was born into this complex political environment, which demanded a keen understanding of power dynamics and alliances. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was the reigning pharaoh, but his rule was marked by instability and heavy reliance on Rome to maintain his power. Known as Auletes, meaning the flute player, Ptolemy XII had a controversial reputation due to his dependence on Roman support and his unpopular methods of raising funds through taxation. Cleopatra's mother remains somewhat mysterious, though it is likely she was Cleopatra V. Tryphonina, Ptolemy XI's wife and possibly his sister, in keeping with the Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriage. Growing up in such an environment, Cleopatra witnessed firsthand the political and familial rivalries that characterized her dynasty. From a young age, Cleopatra received an extensive education at the Library of Alexandria, one of the most renowned centers of knowledge in the ancient world. She was trained in subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, rhetoric, and astronomy, and she became fluent in multiple languages, including Greek and Egyptian. This was a significant departure from the tradition of her predecessors, who mostly spoke Greek. Cleopatra's mastery of Egyptian allowed her to connect more deeply with her subjects, setting her apart as a ruler who embraced both her Greek heritage and her role as Egypt's queen. It is also likely that she learned other languages, such as Latin and Aramaic, enhancing her diplomatic skills. Cleopatra was not the only child of Ptolemy XII. She had several siblings, including Berenice IV, Cleopatra VI, and her two younger brothers, Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV. As was common in the Ptolemaic dynasty, these siblings would later become her political rivals. The Ptolemies were known for their internal conflicts, and this was no different in Cleopatra's time. The competition for power and influence within the royal family was fierce, and Cleopatra's early life was shaped by this atmosphere of intrigue and betrayal. When Cleopatra was about 10 years old, her father faced a political crisis. In 58 BCE, Ptolemy XII was overthrown and forced to flee Egypt due to a popular uprising, largely provoked by his reliance on Rome and his unpopular taxation policies. Cleopatra accompanied her father into exile, spending several years in Rome, where they sought support from the Roman Senate to reclaim his throne. This period in Rome was crucial for Cleopatra's development, as it exposed her to the workings of Roman politics and the power dynamics of the Roman Republic. Observing the political machinations of Roman senators and influential leaders like Pompey and Julius Caesar, Cleopatra gained insights that would later prove invaluable when she herself sought to secure her position as queen. In 55 BCE, Ptolemy XII regained his throne with the help of Roman forces. Upon his return, he executed his daughter, Berenice IV, who had taken the throne during his exile. Cleopatra, still in her teens, witnessed these events and understood the brutal realities of power and the importance of maintaining alliances. Back in Alexandria, she likely served as a close advisor to her father, gaining experience in statecraft and diplomacy. Her father's reliance on Rome continued, and Egypt's relationship with the Roman Republic deepened, creating both opportunities and challenges for Cleopatra's future reign. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, were named co-rulers, following the Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriage. Cleopatra, then about 18 years old, was determined to be the dominant figure in their joint rule. However, her brother's advisors, seeking to gain influence, opposed her. These advisors, who saw Cleopatra as a threat to their power, began conspiring against her, leading to tensions between the two siblings. As political maneuvering intensified, Cleopatra's position became increasingly precarious. Cleopatra's early reign was marked by efforts to stabilize Egypt's economy and assert her authority. The kingdom was heavily indebted to Rome, and Cleopatra understood that maintaining a delicate balance with Roman power was essential for Egypt's survival. She worked to secure alliances and stabilize the economy through diplomatic and trade efforts. However, the conflict with her brother's faction escalated, resulting in Cleopatra's forced exile from Alexandria in 48 BCE. Cleopatra, undeterred, retreated to the eastern deserts of Egypt, where she began gathering support for her return. This period of exile was a turning point for Cleopatra. She demonstrated resilience and strategic acumen, skills that would define her rule in the years to come. Determined to reclaim her throne, she reached out to the powerful Roman general, Julius Caesar, who had arrived in Egypt during this time. Cleopatra's decision to align with Caesar marked the beginning of a new phase in her life, one that would bring her both great power and significant risks. Cleopatra's early life and rise to power provide insight into the complexities of her reign. Her education, linguistic abilities, and political awareness set her apart as a capable and ambitious leader. The lessons she learned from her father's relationship with Rome, her time in exile, and her strategic alliance building would play crucial roles as she navigated the turbulent political landscape of Egypt and Rome. As we continue this journey, we will explore how Cleopatra's alliance with Julius Caesar changed the course of her life and shaped the future of Egypt. Rise to power, Cleopatra's ascension as Pharaoh. In 51 BCE, Cleopatra, alongside her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, ascended to the throne of Egypt following the death of their father, Ptolemy XII Auletes. Cleopatra was only 18 years old, while Ptolemy XIII was around 10. As per Ptolemaic tradition, the siblings were also married to maintain the royal bloodline and ensure the continuity of their dynasty. However, Cleopatra had no intention of being a mere figurehead or sharing power equally with her young brother. She sought to rule as the dominant figure, a position that quickly led to tensions and power struggles within the royal court. Cleopatra faced a precarious situation as she tried to consolidate her power. Egypt was heavily indebted to Rome, and its political stability was fragile due to the kingdom's reliance on Roman support. Cleopatra's initial focus was on strengthening Egypt's economy and asserting her authority, working to stabilize the kingdom's finances through diplomatic alliances and trade agreements across the Mediterranean. She was not just a ruler by birth, she actively engaged in governing, utilizing her education and intelligence to make strategic decisions. Unlike her predecessors, Cleopatra spoke several languages, including Egyptian, which allowed her to connect with her people directly, earning their loyalty and respect. This was a significant departure from previous Ptolemaic rulers, who typically communicated only in Greek. Despite her efforts to stabilize Egypt, Cleopatra faced internal opposition. Ptolemy exiled advisors, who held significant influence over the young king, saw Cleopatra as a threat to their power. They began plotting against her, leading to a factional divide within the royal court. As tensions escalated, Cleopatra found herself increasingly isolated. In 48 BCE, her brother's supporters managed to expel her from Alexandria, forcing her into exile. However, Cleopatra was not one to give up easily. Determined to reclaim her throne, she retreated to the eastern desert regions of Egypt, where she began building alliances and gathering support for her return. During her time in exile, Cleopatra demonstrated her resilience and strategic acumen. She knew that to regain her position, she needed a powerful ally, and an opportunity soon presented itself. At that time, Julius Caesar, one of Rome's most influential generals, arrived in Egypt in pursuit of his rival, Pompey the Great. Cleopatra saw an opening to align herself with Caesar, recognizing his potential to help her reclaim her throne. Cleopatra's decision to ally with Caesar was a bold and calculated move. She arranged a dramatic meeting with him, famously having herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters wrapped in a carpet or linen sack. This audacious gesture was intended to impress Caesar, and it worked. Her intelligence, charm, and courage captured his attention. Cleopatra and Caesar quickly formed both a political and personal alliance. Caesar agreed to support her claim to the throne, seeing in Cleopatra a capable ally who could stabilize Egypt, an important source of grain for Rome. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra returned to Alexandria, where conflict erupted between Caesar's Roman forces and the army loyal to Ptolemy XIII. The resulting siege of Alexandria was a pivotal battle for Cleopatra's rule. Although the fighting was intense, Caesar's forces eventually triumphed. Ptolemy XIII attempted to flee but drowned in the Nile River, leaving Cleopatra as the unchallenged ruler of Egypt. Following Ptolemy XI's death, Cleopatra solidified her rule by marrying her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, though this was largely a ceremonial union meant to maintain traditional appearances. In practice, Cleopatra ruled Egypt independently, asserting her authority over both domestic and foreign affairs. This victory marked the beginning of Cleopatra's true reign as the dominant figure in Egyptian politics. Cleopatra's alliance with Julius Caesar extended beyond Egypt's borders. In 47 BCE, she traveled to Rome, staying in Caesar's villa and presenting herself as his ally and partner. Her presence in Rome was both a political statement and a demonstration of her status as a powerful queen. Cleopatra's stay in Rome allowed her to immerse herself in the Roman political environment, observe its power dynamics, and further her understanding of how to navigate the complex relationships between Rome and Egypt. During this period, she gave birth to a son, Ptolemy Caesar, commonly known as Caesar Ion, whom she claimed was Caesar's legitimate heir. By promoting Caesarion's connection to Caesar, Cleopatra aimed to strengthen her ties to Rome and secure the future of her dynasty. However, Cleopatra's presence in Rome was not without controversy. Many Romans viewed her as a foreign influence and were uneasy about Caesar's growing power and connection with the Egyptian queen. Cleopatra became the subject of gossip and political intrigue, especially as Caesar's ambitions seemed to grow. Her influence over Caesar worried many Roman senators, leading to increased tension within the Roman Republic. In 44 BCE, the alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar came to an abrupt end when Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March. Cleopatra's position immediately became precarious, as the loss of her powerful Roman ally had left her vulnerable. Understanding the danger she and her son faced, Cleopatra quickly returned to Egypt. She knew that she had to secure her rule without Roman backing, and she set about strengthening her kingdom's defenses and stabilizing her power. This period of Cleopatra's life showcases her adaptability, intelligence, and ability to form crucial alliances. Despite the challenges she faced, Cleopatra's determination to secure her throne and her willingness to take bold risks positioned her as one of the most formidable leaders of her time. As we move forward, we will explore her next significant alliance with Mark Antony and how this relationship further shaped her reign and legacy. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, political alliance and romance. After being exiled from Alexandria, Cleopatra faced the challenge of regaining her throne in a politically turbulent environment. She recognized the need for a powerful ally to reclaim her position and restore her authority over Egypt. At that time, the Roman general Julius Caesar had arrived in Egypt, pursuing his rival Pompey the Great. Seeing an opportunity, Cleopatra decided to align herself with Caesar, believing that his influence and military strength could help her retake her throne. Her strategy was daring, and it demonstrated her keen understanding of political dynamics. Cleopatra arranged a dramatic meeting with Caesar in 48 BCE, famously having herself smuggled into his quarters rolled up in a carpet or linen sack. This bold and theatrical entrance was not only a show of bravery but also a calculated move to capture Caesar's attention. Cleopatra's charm, intelligence, and ambition impressed the Roman general. Recognizing her potential as a valuable ally in stabilizing Egypt, Caesar agreed to support her claim to the throne. This marked the beginning of one of the most famous political and personal alliances in ancient history. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra returned to Alexandria, and a civil war erupted between Caesar's forces and those loyal to her brother, Ptolemy XIII. The siege of Alexandria was a critical battle in Cleopatra's quest for power. The fighting was fierce, but with Caesar's military support, Cleopatra's side emerged victorious. Ptolemy XIII attempted to flee during the chaos but drowned in the Nile River. This victory eliminated Cleopatra's primary rival, allowing her to reclaim the throne and solidify her position as Egypt's undisputed ruler. Following Ptolemy XII's death, Cleopatra married her youngest brother, Ptolemy XIV, as a formality to maintain the traditional Ptolemaic practice of sibling marriage. However, Cleopatra ruled independently, and it was clear that she was the true authority in Egypt. With Caesar's support, she stabilized her reign and focused on rebuilding Egypt's economy and political influence. Cleopatra and Caesar's relationship was not just a political alliance, it developed into a romantic partnership that had significant consequences for both Egypt and Rome. In 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Ptolemy 15, commonly known as Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Cleopatra claimed that Caesarion was the legitimate son of Julius Caesar, a statement with powerful implications. By emphasizing Caesarion's paternity, Cleopatra sought to strengthen her ties to Rome and ensure a secure future for her dynasty. She hoped that Caesarion's lineage would not only legitimize his future rule in Egypt but also possibly grant him influence within the Roman Republic itself. Cleopatra's alliance with Caesar extended beyond the borders of Egypt. In 46 BCE, Cleopatra and Caesarion traveled to Rome, where they stayed in Caesar's luxurious villa. Cleopatra's presence in Rome was a political statement. It showcased her as an ally and equal partner to one of the most powerful figures in the Roman world. However, her time in Rome was not without controversy. Many Romans viewed her as a foreign influence and were uncomfortable with the extent of her relationship with Caesar. Some Roman nobles feared that Cleopatra's influence over Caesar could threaten the Republic's political balance. Cleopatra's time in Rome was also an opportunity for cultural exchange. As a queen of great wealth and sophistication, Cleopatra introduced Egyptian customs, fashion, and architecture to Roman society. Her arrival in Rome with a large entourage, including scholars, artisans, and attendants, left a lasting impression. Cleopatra's presence highlighted Egypt's status as a wealthy and powerful kingdom, and it reinforced the importance of her alliance with Caesar. She presented herself as both a traditional Egyptian pharaoh and a cosmopolitan queen capable of bridging the cultures of Egypt and Rome. Despite the benefits of this alliance, Cleopatra's relationship with Caesar was viewed with suspicion by many in the Roman Senate. Some feared that Caesar intended to make himself a king and that his association with Cleopatra, a monarch from a foreign land, was part of a broader ambition to transform the Republic into a monarchy. Cleopatra's influence over Caesar became a point of contention, and rumors began to circulate about her ambitions and the nature of their partnership. The alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar faced a sudden and violent disruption in 44 BCE when Caesar was assassinated by a group of Roman senators on the Ides of March. The death of Caesar left Cleopatra in a vulnerable position. Without her powerful ally, she faced uncertainty about her future and the security of her son, Caesarion. Cleopatra acted quickly, realizing the political landscape in Rome was too dangerous for her and her son. She left Rome and returned to Egypt, where she prepared to rule independently once again. Cleopatra's relationship with Caesar had been a pivotal period in her life. It allowed her to reclaim and stabilize her throne, secure Egypt's independence, and establish strong ties with one of the most powerful men in the Roman Republic. The alliance also enabled her to gain valuable insights into Roman politics, which she would use in her future dealings with Rome. However, Caesar's assassination demonstrated the fragility of alliances and the dangers Cleopatra faced as she navigated the complex web of Roman and Egyptian politics. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra focused on strengthening her kingdom's economy and defenses. She continued to present Caesarion as Caesar's legitimate heir, hoping to use his lineage as a means of securing Egypt's political future. Although Caesar's death was a significant setback, Cleopatra's determination to maintain her rule and protect her son's interests showed her resilience and adaptability. The lessons she learned during her time with Caesar would later influence her approach to another powerful Roman leader, Mark Antony. As we continue, we will explore how Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony developed, how this alliance further solidified her power, and how it ultimately influenced the fate of Egypt and Rome. The birth of Caesar Ion, Cleopatra's heir. In 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Ptolemy 15 Philopator Caesar, more commonly known as Caesar Ion, which means Little Caesar. The birth of Caesar Ion was not only a momentous event for Cleopatra personally, but also carried significant political implications for both Egypt and Rome. Cleopatra claimed that Caesar Ion was the legitimate son of Julius Caesar, a powerful assertion that aimed to solidify her alliance with Rome and secure a future for her dynasty. The birth of Caesar Ion would shape the next phase of Cleopatra's reign, as she sought to navigate the complex political landscape of both Egypt and the Roman Republic. Cleopatra's decision to promote Caesar Ion as the son of Julius Caesar was a calculated political move. By emphasizing her son's connection to one of Rome's most powerful leaders, Cleopatra aimed to strengthen her own position and ensure Egypt's independence. She knew that linking Caesarion's lineage to Caesar could give her leverage in her dealings with Rome and provide her son with a legitimate claim to the throne. Cleopatra's actions were not only about securing her own rule, but also about establishing a legacy that could transcend her own lifetime. With Caesar Ion as a potential heir, she had the opportunity to create a powerful connection between Egypt and Rome, uniting the two civilizations under her dynasty. The implications of Caesarion's birth extended beyond Egypt's borders. Cleopatra's assertion that Caesar Ion was Caesar's legitimate son sparked controversy in Rome. While Caesar did not formally acknowledge Caesar Ion as his heir, Cleopatra's presence in Rome with their child was a visible statement of their alliance. Cleopatra stayed in Caesar's villa in Rome, where she presented herself as a partner and ally to Caesar, highlighting their connection through Caesar Ion. This relationship and the presence of their son at the heart of Roman politics created tension among Roman senators and citizens, many of whom viewed Cleopatra as a foreign influence with potential ambitions for power. Cleopatra's time in Rome with Caesar Ion was marked by both opportunity and danger. On one hand, she was able to use her relationship with Caesar to further her political goals. She observed Roman society and politics firsthand, gaining valuable insights into the dynamics of the Roman Republic. Cleopatra's keen understanding of these dynamics allowed her to navigate the complex relationships and power struggles that characterized Roman politics. On the other hand, her presence in Rome also made her a target for suspicion and gossip. Many Romans, including prominent senators, saw her as a potential threat, fearing that her influence over Caesar could shift the balance of power. The presence of Cleopatra and Caesar Ion in Rome led to widespread rumors. Some speculated that Caesar intended to make himself king and that Cleopatra was part of a broader plan to establish a monarchy. These fears were not entirely unfounded, as Caesar had accumulated significant power and had been appointed dictator for life. The image of Cleopatra as a foreign queen, living openly with Caesar and their son, fueled suspicions that she might be seeking to expand her influence beyond Egypt. This perception contributed to the growing unease in Rome about Caesar's ambitions, and it played a role in the conspiracy that ultimately led to his assassination in 44 BCE. The assassination of Julius Caesar on the Ides of March was a turning point for Cleopatra and Caesar Ion. With Caesar's death, Cleopatra lost her most powerful ally and protector in Rome. Realizing that the political situation in Rome had become too unstable and dangerous, Cleopatra acted quickly. She left Rome and returned to Egypt, taking Caesar Ion with her. Cleopatra understood that without Caesar's support, she would need to secure her position independently and protect her son's future. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra worked to stabilize her rule and promote Caesar Ion as the future king of Egypt. She portrayed him not only as her co-ruler but also as the son of Julius Caesar, reinforcing his legitimacy as a potential heir to both Egyptian and Roman influence. Cleopatra's strategy was to use Caesarion's lineage to solidify her power in Egypt while keeping open the possibility of leveraging his heritage in her dealings with Rome. She continued to emphasize the importance of her son's connection to Caesar, knowing that his dual heritage could be a powerful tool in her political maneuvers. The years following Caesar's assassination were challenging for Cleopatra. She had to navigate the shifting alliances and power struggles within the Roman world, all while ensuring that Caesarion's position as her co-ruler remained secure. Cleopatra's focus was on strengthening Egypt's economy and military, building up resources that would allow her to maintain Egypt's independence and protect Caesarion's future. She understood that with Rome's growing power, Egypt needed to be prepared for any political or military challenge that might arise. Cleopatra's promotion of Caesar Ion as Julius Caesar's son was not only a statement of power but also an attempt to create a lasting legacy. By establishing Caesar Ion as her co-ruler, she aimed to ensure that her dynasty would continue beyond her reign. Cleopatra's vision for her son went beyond Egypt's borders. She saw the potential for Caesar Ion to play a significant role on the world stage, bridging the cultures of Egypt and Rome. However, she also knew that this vision would depend on her ability to navigate the dangerous political landscape and maintain her alliances. The birth of Caesar Ion and his promotion as Cleopatra's co-ruler marked a critical phase in Cleopatra's reign. She successfully used her son's lineage to strengthen her position, but the political situation remained volatile. The next stage of her life would involve forming new alliances and continuing to protect her kingdom and her son. Cleopatra's ability to adapt and strategize would be tested again as she faced the power struggles between Roman leaders and sought to secure Egypt's future. As we move forward, we will explore how Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony evolved and how this alliance further influenced the fate of Egypt and her son, Caesar Ion. Cleopatra's rule, economic and diplomatic strategies. Following her return to Egypt after Julius Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra faced the challenge of ruling independently and securing Egypt's future. She was determined to strengthen her kingdom and protect her son, Caesar Ion, whom she had positioned as her co-ruler. Cleopatra understood that Egypt's stability depended on its economy and diplomatic relations, especially given the growing power of Rome. Her reign during this period was marked by a series of strategic, economic, and diplomatic initiatives designed to solidify her rule and secure Egypt's independence. Cleopatra inherited a kingdom with a rich agricultural base, and she knew that Egypt's wealth depended on the fertility of the Nile River. The Nile's annual floods enriched the soil, allowing Egypt to produce an abundance of grain, which was essential not only for the local population but also for trade with other regions. Cleopatra prioritized maintaining and expanding Egypt's agricultural output, ensuring that Egypt remained a critical supplier of grain, particularly to Rome. By positioning Egypt as a vital source of food for the Roman Empire, Cleopatra aimed to secure her kingdom's strategic importance, making it less likely for Rome to threaten her rule. Beyond agriculture, Cleopatra expanded Egypt's trade networks throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. She strengthened commercial ties with neighboring kingdoms and regions, including Nubia, Syria, and Arabia, as well as further east to the Indian subcontinent. Cleopatra's diplomatic efforts were aimed at diversifying Egypt's economy and increasing its influence through trade. The port city of Alexandria became a bustling hub of commerce and culture under her rule, attracting merchants, scholars, and diplomats from various parts of the ancient world. Cleopatra's investments in Alexandria's infrastructure, including the expansion of its port facilities, demonstrated her commitment to making Egypt a central player in Mediterranean trade. Cleopatra also engaged in strategic diplomatic alliances to secure Egypt's position. She maintained relationships with neighboring powers, including the Nabateans and the Kingdom of Armenia, to ensure that Egypt had allies beyond its borders. Cleopatra's goal was to create a network of friendly states that could support Egypt's independence and serve as a buffer against Roman expansion. These alliances were not merely formal agreements. Cleopatra cultivated personal relationships with foreign rulers, using her intelligence, charm, and diplomatic skill to build trust and cooperation. Despite her efforts to stabilize Egypt's economy and build alliances, Cleopatra remained cautious of Rome's growing influence. After Caesar's assassination, Rome was divided between his supporters, Mark Antony and Octavian, the future Augustus, and the forces of his assassins, led by Brutus and Cassius. Cleopatra closely monitored these developments, understanding that the outcome of Rome's internal conflict would have direct implications for Egypt. She refrained from committing Egypt's support to any faction until the balance of power became clearer. During this period, Cleopatra focused on presenting herself as a legitimate and powerful ruler. She continued to emphasize her connection to Egypt's ancient traditions, presenting herself as both a Greek queen and an Egyptian pharaoh. Cleopatra's ability to merge these identities allowed her to appeal to different segments of her population, strengthening her internal support base. She often appeared in public wearing traditional Egyptian symbols, such as the Nemes headdress and the uraeus, the cobra symbol, which were associated with the divine authority of the pharaohs. Cleopatra's adoption of these symbols reinforced her image as a protector of Egyptian culture and sovereignty. Cleopatra's religious and cultural policies also played a crucial role in legitimizing her rule. She supported Egyptian temples and religious institutions, ensuring that she was seen as a patron of the gods. By aligning herself with the priesthood and the local deities, Cleopatra built a strong connection with the Egyptian people, who saw her as a true and devoted ruler. She was often depicted as the goddess Isis, a powerful and protective figure in Egyptian mythology. This association not only enhanced her divine status, but also created a sense of continuity with Egypt's long history of powerful female leaders, such as Hatshepsut. While Cleopatra's internal strategies focused on stabilizing Egypt, she also prepared for potential threats. Cleopatra invested in Egypt's military, strengthening her fleet and fortifying key positions along the Nile and the Mediterranean coast. She understood that Egypt's independence depended on its ability to defend itself, especially as Rome's civil wars raged on. By building a capable and well-equipped navy, Cleopatra ensured that Egypt could respond to external threats and maintain control over its territories and trade routes. Cleopatra's diplomatic strategies soon paid off. As the conflict between Antony and Octavian unfolded, Mark Antony emerged as a powerful contender for control of the Roman world. Cleopatra recognized the opportunity to form a new alliance that could secure Egypt's future. In 41 BCE, she met with Antony in Tarsus, in modern-day Turkey. Cleopatra's meeting with Antony was carefully planned. She arrived on a magnificent barge, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, captivating Antony and demonstrating her wealth, power, and charisma. This encounter marked the beginning of a new phase in Cleopatra's political and personal life. Cleopatra's economic and diplomatic initiatives demonstrated her skill as a ruler. She successfully stabilized Egypt's economy, expanded its trade networks, and built alliances that strengthened her kingdom's position. These efforts not only protected Egypt's independence but also prepared Cleopatra for her next significant alliance with Mark Antony. Cleopatra's ability to adapt and respond to the shifting dynamics of power in the Mediterranean world showed her strategic foresight and determination to secure Egypt's place on the world stage. As we continue, we will explore how Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony developed, how this relationship transformed the political landscape, and how it shaped the final years of Cleopatra's reign. The relationship with Mark Antony, a powerful alliance. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra and Mark Antony formed one of the most significant alliances of the ancient world. After Julius Caesar's assassination, Rome was divided between his supporters, led by Antony and Octavian, and the forces of his assassins. Antony, seeking allies to strengthen his position against Octavian, called for Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus, a city in modern-day Turkey. Cleopatra, understanding the opportunity to secure Egypt's position and her own power, made a dramatic entrance that would become legendary. Cleopatra's arrival in Tarsus was designed to impress and captivate. She sailed up the Cydnus River on a luxurious barge adorned with purple sails, golden decorations, and scented with perfumes. Cleopatra herself was dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, reclining under a golden canopy. This theatrical display showcased not only her wealth and power, but also her understanding of the symbolic importance of linking herself to divine figures. By presenting herself as a living goddess, Cleopatra aimed to captivate Antony and position herself as a valuable and influential ally. Antony, charmed by Cleopatra's presence and impressed by her display of power, quickly entered into a political and romantic alliance with her. For Cleopatra, the alliance with Antony was a strategic move. She needed a powerful Roman ally to secure Egypt's independence and protect her son, Caesar Ion, whom she continued to promote as Julius Caesar's legitimate heir. By aligning with Antony, Cleopatra sought to ensure that Egypt remained a critical player in the Mediterranean and that her dynasty would continue. Antony and Cleopatra's relationship was mutually beneficial. For Antony, Cleopatra's wealth was invaluable. Egypt was one of the richest kingdoms in the ancient world, and Cleopatra's resources could support Antony's military ambitions. With Cleopatra's financial backing, Antony was able to launch campaigns in Parthia and Armenia, aiming to expand his influence and secure his position against Octavian. Cleopatra, in turn, used these campaigns as an opportunity to strengthen her own political power. She accompanied Antony on his expeditions, reinforcing their alliance and demonstrating her commitment to their shared ambitions. Cleopatra's influence over Antony extended beyond their political and military collaboration. The two rulers spent time together in Alexandria, where they enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, hosting extravagant banquets and events that showcased the wealth and sophistication of the Egyptian court. Cleopatra and Antony's time in Alexandria was not just about pleasure, it was also a display of power and opulence, designed to solidify their alliance and project their combined strength to the world. Cleopatra used these events to present herself and Antony as a powerful couple, capable of rivaling the influence of any other force in the Roman world. In 34 BCE, the alliance between Cleopatra and Antony reached a significant milestone with the donations of Alexandria. After a successful military campaign in Armenia, Antony returned to Alexandria, where he held a grand celebration. During this event, Antony and Cleopatra made a dramatic declaration, dividing territories across the eastern Mediterranean between Cleopatra, her children, and Antony himself. Cleopatra was named Queen of Kings, and Caesarion was proclaimed King of Kings, emphasizing his status as the legitimate son of Julius Caesar. The couple's other children, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, were also given titles and territories, further solidifying Cleopatra's dynasty. The donations of Alexandria were a bold political statement. Cleopatra and Antony were positioning themselves as rulers of a vast and united empire, centered in Alexandria rather than Rome. This move was designed to challenge Octavian's authority and to present Cleopatra and Antony as the rightful heirs to Caesar's legacy. By emphasizing Caesarion's connection to Julius Caesar, Cleopatra aimed to legitimize her son's claim not only to the Egyptian throne but also to potential influence within Rome. However, the donations of Alexandria also provoked outrage in Rome. Many senators viewed Antony's actions as a betrayal of Roman interests, and they saw Cleopatra's influence as a direct threat. Octavian capitalized on these sentiments, portraying Antony as having fallen under the spell of a foreign queen who sought to undermine the Republic. He launched a propaganda campaign against Cleopatra, depicting her as a seductress and a manipulative force trying to seize control of Rome through Antony. The alliance between Cleopatra and Antony faced increasing pressure as Octavian's influence grew. In 32 BCE, Octavian declared war on Cleopatra, framing the conflict as a struggle to protect Rome from foreign interference. He used Cleopatra's relationship with Antony as a justification, claiming that Antony had abandoned his Roman duties for the sake of a foreign queen. This narrative was effective in rallying support among the Roman people, and it set the stage for the final conflict between Antony and Octavian. As the war loomed, Cleopatra remained committed to supporting Antony. She provided him with significant resources, including her fleet, to prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The two lovers knew that the outcome of the upcoming battle would determine not only their fates but also the future of Egypt and Cleopatra's dynasty. Cleopatra's determination to support Antony demonstrated her loyalty and the depth of their alliance. However, she also understood the stakes and began making preparations to protect Egypt in case the conflict did not go in their favor. The relationship between Cleopatra and Antony was more than just a romantic partnership. It was a calculated political alliance aimed at securing power and influence. Cleopatra's ability to align herself with powerful figures like Antony showed her strategic foresight and her skill in navigating the complexities of both Egyptian and Roman politics. However, as the war with Octavian approached, the alliance faced its greatest challenge. As we move forward, we will explore the events leading up to the Battle of Actium, the decisive confrontation that would seal the fate of Cleopatra, Antony, and Egypt. Cleopatra and Antony's military campaigns. Cleopatra and Mark Antony's alliance was not only a personal partnership but also a powerful political and military collaboration. Together, they sought to expand their influence across the eastern Mediterranean and challenge the dominance of Octavian, their main rival in Rome. Antony, with Cleopatra's financial and military support, embarked on several campaigns aimed at securing territory and strengthening their combined power. These campaigns were crucial in shaping the future of Cleopatra's reign, as she used them to solidify her position and demonstrate her commitment to Egypt's independence. One of the most significant military campaigns Cleopatra and Antony embarked on was their expedition against the Parthian Empire in 36 BCE. The Parthians had been long-standing rivals of Rome, and Antony sought to achieve what others, including Julius Caesar, had failed to accomplish, subduing this powerful eastern kingdom. For Cleopatra, the campaign represented an opportunity to strengthen her alliance with Antony and increase Egypt's influence in the region. She provided Antony with both financial resources and military support, ensuring that Egypt played a central role in the campaign's logistics and planning. Despite their ambitions, the Parthian campaign faced numerous challenges. Antony's forces struggled with supply shortages and difficult terrain, and they were unable to achieve a decisive victory against the Parthian armies. The harsh conditions took a toll on Antony's troops, and the campaign ultimately ended in a strategic failure. Although Cleopatra had invested significant resources, the outcome of the campaign was a setback for their alliance. Nevertheless, Cleopatra's support for Antony during this difficult period strengthened their bond, and she continued to stand by him, providing further assistance as he regrouped his forces. After the failure in Parthia, Antony turned his attention to Armenia. In 34 BCE, Antony led a successful campaign to conquer the kingdom, capturing its king, Artavasdes II, and taking control of the territory. Cleopatra accompanied Antony during this campaign, reinforcing their alliance and demonstrating her commitment to their shared goals. The victory in Armenia allowed Antony and Cleopatra to recover some of the prestige they had lost in the Parthian campaign. Upon their return to Alexandria, they held a grand celebration known as the Donations of Alexandria, where they divided territories and titles among themselves and their children. The Donations of Alexandria were a significant political maneuver. Antony and Cleopatra used the occasion to present themselves as rulers of a vast empire, with Alexandria as its capital. Cleopatra was declared Queen of Kings, and her children, including Caesarion and her twins with Antony, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, were granted titles and territories across the eastern Mediterranean. The event was not just a display of power, it was a declaration of their intention to create a dynasty that could rival and even surpass Rome's influence. However, the Donations of Alexandria also sparked outrage in Rome. Octavian seized the opportunity to portray Antony as a traitor who had abandoned Roman values and duties in favor of a foreign queen. The propaganda campaign Octavian launched painted Cleopatra as a seductress and manipulator who aimed to seize control of Rome through Antony. This portrayal resonated with the Roman public, who were wary of the growing power of the East and saw Cleopatra's influence as a threat to their way of life. The Donations, intended to showcase Antony and Cleopatra's strength, instead became a focal point for Octavian's campaign against them. As tensions with Octavian escalated, Cleopatra and Antony knew they needed to prepare for an inevitable military confrontation. They gathered their forces, combining Cleopatra's naval fleet with Antony's Roman legions. Cleopatra's fleet was one of the largest and most advanced in the Mediterranean, a testament to Egypt's wealth and strategic importance. The couple fortified their position in Greece, using the port city of Actium as their base of operations. Cleopatra personally oversaw the preparations, demonstrating her commitment to defending their alliance and protecting Egypt's interests. The build-up to the confrontation at Actium was marked by political maneuvering and military preparation. Cleopatra and Antony sought to rally support from other regions in the eastern Mediterranean, attempting to consolidate their power base. However, Octavian's growing influence and propaganda efforts made it difficult for them to gain the support they needed. Many Roman allies, wary of Octavian's power and swayed by his portrayal of Cleopatra as a threat, chose to side with him instead. In 31 BCE, the conflict came to a head at the Battle of Actium, a naval confrontation that would determine the fate of Antony, Cleopatra, and Egypt. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet faced Octavian's forces, led by his trusted general Agrippa. The battle was fierce, with both sides fighting for control of the Mediterranean's strategic waterways. Cleopatra commanded her fleet alongside Antony, showing her direct involvement in the defense of their alliance. However, despite their efforts, the battle quickly turned against them. Octavian's fleet, better prepared and strategically positioned, managed to gain the upper hand. During the battle, Cleopatra made a crucial decision. Seeing that their fleet was losing, she chose to retreat with her ships, possibly hoping to regroup and fight another day. Antony, loyal to Cleopatra, followed her retreat, leaving much of their fleet behind. This decision has been debated by historians as either a calculated strategic move or an act of desperation. Regardless, the retreat marked the turning point in the battle. With Antony and Cleopatra's forces in disarray, Octavian emerged victorious, and the remnants of their fleet were destroyed or captured. The defeat at Actium was a significant blow to Cleopatra and Antony. They retreated to Egypt, where they began preparing for the inevitable arrival of Octavian's forces. Despite the loss, Cleopatra did not lose her resolve. She continued to marshal her resources, focusing on defending Alexandria and protecting her children, particularly Caesar Ion, whom she still promoted as Julius Caesar's heir. The campaigns Cleopatra and Antony undertook together showcased their ambitions and the extent of their alliance. While they achieved some successes, such as the conquest of Armenia, the failures, particularly the loss at Actium, highlighted the challenges they faced in their quest to expand their power. Cleopatra's commitment to supporting Antony, even in the face of military setbacks, demonstrated her loyalty and strategic foresight. However, with Octavian's forces closing in, the final chapter of their alliance was rapidly approaching. As we move forward, we will explore the aftermath of the Battle of Actium and how Cleopatra's resilience and determination shaped the final days of her reign. The Battle of Actium, the turning point. The Battle of Actium, fought on September 2nd, 31 BCE, was the decisive confrontation that would seal the fate of Cleopatra, Mark Antony, and Egypt. Positioned off the western coast of Greece, this naval battle was the culmination of the escalating conflict between Cleopatra and Antony's forces and those of Octavian, Julius Caesar's adopted son and Antony's rival for control of Rome. The outcome of Actium would not only determine who would emerge as the dominant power in Rome, but also the future of Egypt as an independent kingdom. Leading up to the battle, tensions between Cleopatra, Antony, and Octavian had reached their peak. Octavian's relentless propaganda campaign against Cleopatra and Antony had succeeded in turning much of the Roman public and Senate against them. He portrayed Antony as a traitor who had abandoned his Roman duties for the sake of a foreign queen, and Cleopatra as a seductress trying to undermine Rome's power. These efforts were effective in rallying support for Octavian, and many of Antony's former allies switched sides, leaving him and Cleopatra increasingly isolated. Cleopatra and Antony understood that a confrontation was inevitable. They gathered their forces, combining Antony's Roman legions with Cleopatra's powerful fleet. Cleopatra's naval resources were critical to their strategy. Egypt's navy was one of the largest and most advanced in the Mediterranean, with numerous warships designed for both speed and power. The couple chose Actium, a strategic coastal location, as their base of operations, hoping to control the sea routes and use their fleet strength to their advantage. However, the build-up to the battle revealed underlying weaknesses in Cleopatra and Antony's position. Despite their combined resources, they faced challenges in rallying support from other regions. Many of Antony's former allies, influenced by Octavian's propaganda and sensing the shifting power dynamics, chose to align with Octavian instead. Additionally, Octavian's forces, led by his skilled general Agrippa, managed to cut off Antony and Cleopatra's supply lines, creating logistical difficulties for their forces stationed at Actium. This blockade not only weakened their position but also lowered morale among their troops, who faced shortages and increasing desertions. The Battle of Actium was fought primarily as a naval engagement. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet, consisting of several hundred ships, faced off against Octavian's forces, which were smaller in number but strategically superior. Octavian's fleet was well organized, and Agrippa's tactics of cutting off Antony and Cleopatra's supply lines had left their forces weakened and vulnerable. As the battle commenced, Cleopatra and Antony fought fiercely, determined to break through Octavian's blockade and turn the tide in their favor. Despite their efforts, the tide of the battle quickly shifted in Octavian's favor. His forces, more maneuverable and better positioned, managed to outflank Cleopatra and Antony's fleet. During the heat of the battle, Cleopatra made a crucial decision. She ordered her fleet to retreat, possibly hoping to regroup and fight another day. Her flagship, accompanied by a portion of the Egyptian fleet, broke through the Roman lines and sailed away from the battle. Antony, seeing Cleopatra's retreat, made the fateful choice to follow her, abandoning the rest of his fleet in the process. The reasons behind Cleopatra's retreat remain debated by historians. Some suggest it was a pre-planned strategy, while others argue that she saw the battle was lost and decided to save her forces for future defense. Antony's decision to follow Cleopatra rather than continue fighting was seen by many as an act of loyalty but also as a sign of desperation. With Antony and Cleopatra's departure, the remaining fleet was left leaderless and soon overwhelmed by Octavian's forces. The once formidable navy of Egypt and Rome was either destroyed or captured, leaving Cleopatra and Antony's power significantly diminished. The aftermath of the Battle of Actium was a turning point for Cleopatra. Realizing the gravity of their defeat, she and Antony retreated to Alexandria, Egypt's capital, where they began making preparations for the inevitable arrival of Octavian's forces. Cleopatra focused on fortifying Alexandria's defenses, stockpiling resources, and preparing for a potential siege. Despite the loss, she remained determined to protect her kingdom and her son, Caesar Ion, whom she continued to promote as the legitimate heir of Julius Caesar. The defeat at Actium also strained Cleopatra and Antony's relationship. With their combined military strength shattered, they faced mounting internal and external pressure. Antony, devastated by the loss and the consequences it had on their alliance, became increasingly withdrawn and demoralized. Cleopatra, on the other hand, took charge of Egypt's defenses, demonstrating her resilience and commitment to protecting her people. She also explored diplomatic avenues, sending emissaries to Octavian in an attempt to negotiate terms that might preserve her throne and Caesarion's future. However, Octavian, emboldened by his victory at Actium, was determined to consolidate his power and eliminate any rivals. He refused Cleopatra's offers of negotiation, insisting that he would only accept unconditional surrender. Cleopatra, understanding the threat posed by Octavian's ambitions, began making contingency plans. She prepared a fleet for a possible escape and moved treasures and valuables out of Alexandria, aiming to safeguard Egypt's wealth should a retreat become necessary. As Octavian's forces advanced into Egypt in 30 BCE, Cleopatra's options dwindled. She continued to negotiate, hoping to find a way to protect her son and her kingdom, but Octavian's intent was clear. He aimed to bring Egypt under Roman control. Cleopatra's position became increasingly precarious, and she realized that the fate of Egypt and her dynasty now hung in the balance. The Battle of Actium was not just a military defeat, it was a turning point that marked the beginning of the end for Cleopatra's reign. The loss of her fleet and the strategic failure at Actium left Egypt vulnerable to Roman conquest. Cleopatra's alliance with Antony, once a powerful partnership, now faced the harsh realities of defeat and the consequences of their ambitions. As Octavian's forces approached, Cleopatra's resilience and determination would be tested in the final chapter of her life. As we continue, we will explore Cleopatra's final days, the fall of Alexandria, and how she faced her ultimate confrontation with Octavian. Cleopatra's final days, the fall of Egypt. Following the devastating defeat at the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra and Mark Antony retreated to Alexandria, their once glorious capital, now under threat of Roman conquest. The loss had left Cleopatra's military power severely diminished, and she faced the reality of an impending invasion by Octavian's forces. Determined to protect her kingdom and her son, Caesar Ion, Cleopatra began preparing for what seemed like an inevitable confrontation with Rome. The final chapter of Cleopatra's reign was marked by her resilience, political maneuvering, and ultimately, her tragic end. After returning to Alexandria in 30 BCE, Cleopatra focused on fortifying the city's defenses. She understood that Octavian, now the undisputed leader of Rome after his victory at Actium, was determined to eliminate any remaining threats to his authority. Cleopatra's priority was to protect Egypt's independence and secure a future for her dynasty. She gathered her remaining forces, stockpiled supplies, and reinforced the city's fortifications in anticipation of a Roman siege. Despite the grim circumstances, Cleopatra displayed remarkable determination and leadership, rallying her people and preparing for a final stand. At the same time, Cleopatra continued to explore diplomatic avenues, hoping to negotiate a favorable outcome with Octavian. She sent emissaries to the Roman leader, offering to surrender on terms that would preserve her throne and Caesarian status as her co-ruler. Cleopatra's primary objective was to secure a future for her son, whom she still promoted as the legitimate heir of Julius Caesar. However, Octavian, now fully aware of his advantage, rejected her offers. His intentions were clear. He aimed to bring Egypt under Roman control and eliminate any rivals to his authority, including Cleopatra and Caesar Ion. As Octavian's forces advanced into Egypt, Cleopatra faced increasing pressure. Mark Antony, devastated by their defeat at Actium and the looming collapse of their power, struggled to maintain his composure. He became increasingly despondent, and his ability to lead their remaining forces diminished. Cleopatra, on the other hand, remained focused on her preparations and contingency plans. She secretly prepared a fleet for a potential escape and moved Egypt's treasures out of Alexandria, intending to safeguard Egypt's wealth and ensure her son's safety if retreat became necessary. The situation reached a critical point when Octavian's army entered Alexandria in 30 BCE. Antony attempted to mount a defense, but his forces, demoralized and weakened, were no match for Octavian's seasoned legions. In the face of overwhelming odds, Antony's troops quickly surrendered. Realizing that his defeat was inevitable, Antony retreated to the palace, deeply despondent over the collapse of their ambitions and the impending loss of Cleopatra. In a final act of despair, Antony fell upon his own sword, believing that Cleopatra had already taken her own life. Severely wounded, he was taken to Cleopatra's chamber, where he died in her arms. The loss of Antony, her longtime ally and partner, marked the beginning of the end for Cleopatra. She was now left alone to face Octavian and the fate of her kingdom. Cleopatra, however, did not surrender immediately. She barricaded herself within her mausoleum, a grand structure she had prepared as her final resting place, and continued her attempts to negotiate with Octavian. Octavian, understanding Cleopatra's influence and the potential threat she posed even in defeat, sought to capture her alive. He aimed to bring her to Rome as a captive, a prize that would demonstrate his power and cement his triumph over Egypt. Cleopatra, aware of his intentions, remained defiant. She sent messages to Octavian, claiming she would negotiate, but in reality, she was preparing for her final act. Fearing the humiliation of being paraded through the streets of Rome as a captive, Cleopatra made the decision to take her own life. According to tradition, she arranged for an asp, a venomous snake, to be smuggled into her chamber. On August 12, 30 BCE, Cleopatra, dressed in her royal regalia, allowed the snake to bite her, choosing to die as a queen rather than face the dishonor of Roman captivity. Her death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty, and with it, Egypt's long history as an independent kingdom. Octavian, upon learning of Cleopatra's death, was disappointed that he had lost the chance to display her as his prize. Nevertheless, he moved swiftly to consolidate his control over Egypt. Octavian's forces entered Alexandria unopposed, and Egypt was formally annexed as a Roman province. Octavian, who would later become Augustus, the first Roman emperor, took possession of Egypt's wealth, ensuring Rome's dominance over the region and the Mediterranean as a whole. As for Caesar Ion, Cleopatra's son and co-ruler, his fate was sealed. Octavian could not allow a potential rival claimant to Caesar's legacy to live. Despite Cleopatra's efforts to secure his safety, Caesar Ion was captured and executed, marking the final end of the Ptolemaic line. With the deaths of Cleopatra and Caesar Ion, Octavian eliminated any threats to his rule and solidified his authority as the uncontested leader of Rome. Cleopatra's final days illustrate her determination and strategic foresight. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, she fought to protect her kingdom and her legacy. Her choice to end her life on her own terms was an act of defiance, a refusal to submit to the power that sought to enslave her. Cleopatra's story became a legend, a tale of ambition, romance, and tragedy that has captivated imaginations for centuries. The fall of Egypt marked the end of an era. With its annexation, Rome absorbed Egypt's wealth and resources, ensuring its dominance in the ancient world. Cleopatra's legacy, however, endured. She remains one of the most iconic figures of antiquity, symbolizing both the power and fragility of empire. Her life, marked by intelligence, ambition, and determination, continues to be remembered as a testament to the complexities of power and the enduring allure of Egypt's last queen. As we conclude Cleopatra's story, we will explore her enduring legacy and the impact she left on history, culture, and the ancient world. Cleopatra's legacy, the end of an era and her impact on history. The death of Cleopatra 7 in 30 BCE marked not only the end of her life, but also the end of Egypt's independence and the Ptolemaic dynasty. With Cleopatra's passing, Egypt was annexed by Rome, becoming a province that would be crucial to the Roman Empire's prosperity for centuries to come. However, while Egypt's status as an independent kingdom ended, Cleopatra's legacy endured, leaving an indelible mark on history, culture, and the imagination of generations. Cleopatra's reign was a pivotal moment in ancient history. As the last pharaoh of Egypt, she was a bridge between the old and the new worlds, representing the final chapter of the Hellenistic kingdoms established by Alexander the Great. Her ability to navigate the complexities of Egyptian and Roman politics, as well as her strategic alliances with powerful Roman figures like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, demonstrated her political acumen and ambition. Cleopatra was not merely a queen by birth, she was a ruler who actively shaped the events of her time, using her intelligence, charm, and determination to fight for her kingdom's survival. One of Cleopatra's most enduring legacies is her portrayal as a powerful and enigmatic figure who challenged the traditional roles of women in her era. Unlike many women of antiquity, Cleopatra wielded real political power and was a sovereign ruler in her own right. She commanded armies, managed diplomatic relations, and made strategic alliances that had far-reaching consequences. Cleopatra's decision to embrace her role as both a Greek queen and an Egyptian pharaoh allowed her to connect with her people, reinforcing her authority and legitimacy. Her portrayal as the goddess Isis and her efforts to promote Egyptian traditions demonstrated her understanding of the cultural and religious significance of her position. Cleopatra's relationships with Caesar and Antony are often highlighted as central aspects of her life, and they played a critical role in shaping her reign. These alliances were not merely romantic, they were calculated political moves aimed at securing Egypt's independence in an increasingly Roman-dominated world. Cleopatra's alliance with Caesar allowed her to reclaim her throne and stabilize Egypt's economy, while her partnership with Antony gave her the opportunity to expand her influence across the eastern Mediterranean. Despite the ultimate failure of these alliances, Cleopatra's ability to form such connections demonstrated her skill in navigating the dangerous and complex world of Roman politics. The stories of Cleopatra's life and death have inspired countless interpretations and retellings over the centuries, from ancient Roman accounts to Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra and modern films. However, it is important to recognize that much of what has been written about Cleopatra was shaped by her enemies, particularly Octavian, who later became Augustus. Octavian's propaganda campaign portrayed Cleopatra as a seductress and a manipulative queen who sought to undermine Rome's power. This image, though influential, was not entirely accurate. Cleopatra's actions were rooted in her desire to protect her kingdom and her legacy. Her alliances, far from being driven purely by romance, were strategic efforts to secure Egypt's future. Cleopatra's legacy extends beyond her role as a political figure. She is also remembered for her contributions to Egyptian culture and her efforts to preserve Egypt's identity in a time of great change. Cleopatra supported the Library of Alexandria, one of the most important centers of knowledge in the ancient world, and she invested in the city's infrastructure, promoting its status as a hub of commerce, learning, and culture. Her patronage of the arts and scholarship ensured that Alexandria remained a beacon of knowledge even as the political landscape shifted. Cleopatra's efforts to maintain Egypt's independence and identity reflected her deep understanding of her role not just as a ruler, but as a protector of her people's heritage. The fall of Egypt and its annexation by Rome transformed the Mediterranean world. Egypt's wealth, particularly its grain production, became a cornerstone of the Roman economy, and its resources helped fuel Rome's expansion and prosperity. However, Cleopatra's legacy as Egypt's last pharaoh continued to influence the way the ancient world was perceived. The fascination with her life, her alliances, and her tragic end has left a lasting impact on literature, art, and popular culture, making her one of the most iconic figures of antiquity. Cleopatra's story also serves as a reminder of the complexities of power and the delicate balance between ambition and survival. Her life was a series of calculated risks and bold moves, from her dramatic entrance to meet Caesar, rolled up in a carpet, to her strategic alliance with Antony and her efforts to challenge Octavian. Cleopatra's determination to maintain her throne, even in the face of overwhelming odds, shows her resilience and adaptability as a ruler. Her ultimate decision to take her own life rather than be paraded through Rome as a captive was an act of defiance, ensuring that she would be remembered as a queen who died on her own terms. The image of Cleopatra has evolved over time, shaped by both historical accounts and fictional portrayals. In some stories, she is depicted as a tragic romantic heroine; in others, she is a cunning and ruthless queen. The real Cleopatra was likely a complex blend of these characteristics, a woman of intelligence, ambition, and strength, but also one who faced immense challenges and made difficult decisions. Her life is a testament to the power of perception and storytelling, as her legend has become a symbol of both the glory and tragedy of ancient Egypt. As the Roman Empire rose from the ashes of Cleopatra's Egypt, her influence persisted. The memory of her reign and the cultural legacy she left behind became a part of Rome's own identity. Roman emperors, particularly Augustus, used Cleopatra's story to justify their own authority and expansion, transforming her life and actions into a cautionary tale and a symbol of Rome's triumph. Yet, despite these efforts, Cleopatra's legacy has outshone the propaganda. She remains one of history's most intriguing and influential figures, a symbol of power, intelligence, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Cleopatra's story, from her rise to power to her tragic end, continues to captivate audiences, illustrating the complexities of leadership and the fragility of empires. Her life reminds us of the enduring power of ambition and the lengths to which one can go to protect a legacy. As the last queen of Egypt, Cleopatra's reign marked the end of an era, but her legacy lives on, proving that even in defeat, the stories we leave behind can shape the world for generations to come. As we conclude this whispered journey through the life of Cleopatra VII, we've explored the rise and fall of Egypt's last pharaoh, her alliances with some of Rome's greatest figures, and the legacy she left behind. Cleopatra was more than just a queen; she was a symbol of power, intelligence, and resilience. From her early days in Alexandria to her final moments of defiance, Cleopatra's story is one of courage and ambition in the face of overwhelming odds. Her impact on history, culture, and the imagination remains as captivating today as it was over 2,000 years ago. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Cleopatra's life. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future journeys into the mysteries of the past. Your support means the world and helps us continue bringing these whispered tales to life. Until next time, take care and sweet dreams.